The sea around Eilean Mòr has never been kind. Even on calm days, the Atlantic swells rise like breathing giants, lifting and lowering any vessel that dares to approach. In December 1900, it was no different, though the calm was deceptive. The relief ship Hesperus cut through the grey water. Its hull groaning with every wave, carrying a small crew whose task was both routine and ominous: to resupply the Flying Isles Lighthouse and relieve the freemen stationed there. From a distance, the tower stood proud, a pale stone sentinel against the black cliffs, its lantern room catching the dim light of the overcast sky. Yet as they drew closer, the first signs of unease appeared. No welcoming figures on the landing, no signal flag. Bosun Joseph Moore, a sturdy man of 32, was the first ashore. The gangway was slick with sea spray, but there was no sign of struggle, no debris, no human trace. He climbed the steep path to the lighthouse, the sound of it built merely by a strange stillness. At the door, he found it locked. Side the kitchen table was set for a meal that had never been eaten. Chairs neatly tucked in, bread still on the board, a knife resting beside it. In the corner, the clock had stopped. The logbook lay open on the desk. The last entry was dated December 15, nearly 2 weeks earlier. It noted heavy winds and diminishing light. Another line in the more hurried hand mentioned a strange calm and unusual sea motion. The final words were simply, "God is over all." Moore searched each room, beds made. Oilskins missing the heavy leather gear they would wear outside. The lamp in the lantern room was trimmed and ready for lighting, but dark. There was no sign of the three T-Bears, James Bucat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. By the time Moore returned to the Hesperus, the sky was beginning to close in, the winter light dimming faster than it should. He reported what he had found, and the captain ordered a full search of the island. They combed the cliffs, peered into sea caves, called the men's names until their voices cracked, but the ocean kept its counsel. It was as if the freemen had zapped out into the storm and never returned. That night, the crew of the Hesperus slept uneasily aboard their ship, anchored off the black outline of the island. Some claimed to hear voices on the wind, three at once, calling not for help but for someone to listen. The investigation would begin the next day. In the weeks to come, Eilean Mòr would give up fragments of truth in deeper shadows that would never lift. The morning after their arrival, the crew of the Hesperus rose before the sun. The December wind was sharp enough to cut through wool, and the sea had a peculiar heaviness to it, as though something immense lurked beneath the surface. Captain Harry ordered Moore and 2 others back ashore to examine the lighthouse in daylight. This time they carried with them a sense of grim duty, the thin hope of finding the men alive, already dimmed out. Inside, the same strange order awaited them. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no overturned lamps, none of the chaos one might expect if a storm had caught Hesperus by surprise. On the kitchen wall hung a set of oilskins, but only one set. 2 were missing. If they left together, why would one man venture into the winter gale without his protective gear? In the records room, Moore pored over the logbook again. Handwriting shifted subtly over the final day's Marshall's neat script, giving way to a cramped, almost frantic hand. On December 12th, he recorded severe winds north-northwest, and that the seas were higher than I've seen in 20 years. On the 13th, an even stranger news. Ducat quiet MacArthur crying. MacArthur was known among lighthouse men as a brawler, a man with a quick temper, but no weakness for tears. For him to be described as crying suggested something far beyond the ordinary strain of the pulse. The last full entry on December 15th described the storm subsiding. She calmly read, "God is over all." But Moore noticed something else between that line and the signature. The ink was faint, so the pen had paused in the air, hesitating over words that were never written. Outside, search party explored the western landing, the most dangerous side of the island. where the cliff dropped sheer into the ruined shelf. There, they found the ropes from the landing crane, lying in disarray on the rocks below. The iron railing had been twisted as though by some immense force, and the storage box, once bolted down, was missing entirely. Yet the sea that day was calm, the waves licking the stone like a sleeping animal. One theory took shape. Perhaps a sudden squall or rogue wave had struck, while the men were securing equipment, sweeping them into the Atlantic. But as Harvey himself said later, 3 men don't go together, not all at once, not without one running for safety. As the day wore on, the island seemed to absorb the men's unease. Gulls wheeled overhead but made no sound. The great tower loomed a monument not just to human engineering, but to human absence. Mòr felt it most keenly in the lamp room. Standing beside the dark lantern, he could almost sense the 3 T-bears at their posts, eyes scanning the horizon for ship's eyes that had seen something they could not turn away from, something that had drawn them out into the wind. By evening, the search was abandoned. There was no sign of the bodies, no blood, no struggle, just the sense that the island itself had swallowed them, the way the ocean swallows the sun. The men returned to the headbears, each carrying a piece of the mystery in his mind, knowing it would follow him back to shore and into his sea. On the journey to the mainland, the crew spoke little, but when they did, it was in whispers about MacArthur's tears, about the twisted railing, about the entry in the logbook that ended with God, nothing after. They did not speak of the other thing Mòr had found in the lantern room, hidden under a cloth. A small, empty jar that smelled faintly of salt and iron, so it had once held something alive. When the Hasbears docked at the port of Leith on December 29, 1900, the story had already begun to seep into the harborside taverns and tea houses. Men who had never seen the Eilean Mòr in their lives spoke of it as though they had been there, their versions swollen with storm and phantom lights. But in the sober light of officialdom, the Board of Trade ordered an inquiry, and it fell to Superintendent Robert Muirhead, a man who knew the T-bears personally, to make sense of the impossible. Muirhead's report was methodical, each page heavy with the weight of fact, the dates of the last recorded communications, the state of the quarters, the weather patterns logged by ships in the surrounding waters. But woven between the lines were hints of something the report could not say aloud. Muirhead noted the missing oilskins, the damage to the West Landing, and the logbook entries describing storms far beyond what meteorological records confirmed. He underlined the words of MacArthur crying twice, as though the ink itself could force the world to explain it. During interviews, the Hasbear's crew admitted to an unease they could not name. One man, a seaman named Cameron, claimed that while standing near the lantern room, he had heard a low hum, like the vibration of a distant engine. It faded the moment he stepped away from the glass. Another swore that as they left the island, he had looked back and seen, just for an instant, a figure standing at the rail of the West Landing, coatless, unmoving, the wind tearing at his hair. They told these things quietly, not to the press, but to one another in the corners of the inquiry room, as though the telling itself might bring the island's attention upon them. The official conclusion was simple, almost insultingly so. The men had been lost while attempting to secure equipment during rough seas. Tragic accident, nothing more. Yet Muirhead could not reconcile this with the order of the quarters, the locked doors. The way the kitchen clock had stopped at exactly 9:33, he did not include that last detail in his report. Sumptuous he felt, but not belonging ink. In the weeks that followed, Eilean Mòr remained unoccupied. Supply ships brought oil and rations, but no T-bear set foot on its rocks until February. Even then, the new crew's 3 men of stoic reputation lasted barely a fortnight before requesting transfer. They claimed it was the wind that broke them, but the island had known far greater storms without complaint. Years later, one of those replacement T-bears, old and gray, finally spoke of what had driven them away. On the 3rd night, he said, the 3 of them had been woken by a knocking sound slow. The whippet that seemed to travel through the very stone of the lighthouse, circled the tower one step at a time, and stopped outside each of their doors in turn. When they opened them, the corridor was empty, but the knocking resumed as soon as they lay back down. The man's eyes misted as he told it, his voice breaking into the hush of the pub where he sat. It wasn't a knock like wood on wood, he said. It was like someone tapping from underneath the world. He never returned to Lighthouse duty. By the time the decade turned, the disappearance of the T-Bears had settled into the folklore of the Hebrides. Children dared each other to say MacArthur's name 3 times a night. Fishermen muttered prayers when passing too near the finance. But in the archives, Mirhai kept one object locked in a drawer until its death. A scrap of paper, found beneath the floorboards of a lantern room, on which someone had scrawled in a shady hand, "Have come again." After the papers had folded the finding mystery into neat columns of shrouded, Joseph Mòr returned to Eilean Mòr. He borrowed a boat in Stornoway, rowed out on a day when the sea wore a meek face and the sky lay flat. He brought oil, bread, the empty jar he had found in the lamp room, one that smelled of salt and iron. He did not go to hunt ghosts or argue with accidents. He went because he could no longer sleep in a world that pretended the lamp had never learned to look back. The landing was silent. Inside, the dust lay as snow on the desk. Mòr climbed, counting steps as he had been trained, letting the rhythm carry him into the litany the keepers knew. Keep the oil, trim the flame, tend the light, mind the sea. The glass watched. He set the jar on the sill and opened the lid, while for a moment nothing happened. Then the flame of his hand went and guttered and steadied, as if something had leaned in to see. Mòr spoke aloud, not to the dead, but to the work. "James, Tom, Donald, if you are within the wind, I keep your watch." The tower answered with a low hum, not the sea. A note growing from the stone. He pressed under his ribs, tender as grief. On the floor lay the logbook he had left open months before. His name was there. Beside it, in another hand, a line had been added in a cramped script he knew without seeing. Lay tended, sea listening. No signature, only 3 tiny marks, like nailheads in a triangle. He lit the lamp, though no ship would see it in daylight. The lens gathered the flame and returned it 100-fold. Then he went to the cliff. At the west landing, the iron rail still lay twisted. The crane's chain had polished the rock to a dark shine. Mòr pressed his palm to the stone. It was warm, not sun-warm, blood-warm, as if the island remembered the hands that had gripped it last. In the seam of basalt, he found a shred of blue cloth, 2 letters stitched there, weathery but legible. Ma. He put the scrap in his pocket and did not look at the sea. When he returned, the jar on the sill was fogged from within. On the glass, in a finger of condensation, were 4 words that blurred as he read them. "Do not empty me. No tale says the monks who kept bees on the flanders would tell the hives when a brother died." Mòr, who had no hive, told the lamp, spoke the 3 names into the piercing glass. He felt the tower hold him. He left at dusk. On the water, he did not look back until the island had shrunk to a knucklebone on the horizon. In that last light, he saw what he will not swear he saw. The lantern burning, though no hand remained to tend it, and 3 figures on the gallery, looking not out to sea, but inward, toward the flame. The inquiry would keep its verdict. The bird would keep its face. Papers would keep their tidy endings. The minutes see past trees without ink. They say a real sea can cure iron, that a whim of wind can lift men, that fail can make a fatty weep. They say sometimes the stone itself keeps watch, and sometimes it eats the tithe. Years later, when Mòr was old, he kept a jar in the drawer by his bed. On nights when dreams smelled of kelp, he would lift the lid and listen, heard nothing. In that silence he understood. Not everything taken is gone. Some things are kept so fiercely, the world must call it lost to go on. As for Eilean Mòr, the ship still might circle, and on nights, revolving gleam will sweep the water with a charged draw stone. The keepers have now returned, because the work has never ended. The lamp keeps them, the sea keeps the lamp, and the island keeps its counsel. If ever you pass that way in the air taste of iron, breathe once for the men whose names finished in the mouth of the wind. If you feel a hum inside your ribs, do not be afraid. It is only the tower reminding you that someone is at his post. It is only the light looking back. Our story ends here, but its mysteries remain. If you are also attracted to these unsolved hidden corners, the hidden hour know by clicking like and subscribe to the channel to discover the next secrets together. We always read all your comments. So what is your question? Comment below. Leave your thoughts below. Who knows? The answer is always there, just waiting for us to find.